Mahomes, cannon, touchdown, Chris Conley.
You'll shit on people. Don't worry.
I hope so.
You'll shit on them. Speaking of getting shitty.
Alright.
Mahomes looking downfield, fires. Travis Kelce, touchdown.
Oh wait, Tony won. I must have done that before.
Mahomes swings it to the outside. Hunt works his way in for the touchdown. Mahomes looks over the middle. Open man, Travis Kelce, touchdown.
How do we gooch? So he came back with a German hand grenade instead. Well, today's not a total loss. Or I see a black man with a white woman, you know? Oh, or just a black man, really.
Mahomes, timing route, down the sideline. It's caught. Touchdown, Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes with another dime. She got herself in a heck of a fix.
I didn't forget anything. Hello, it's me. Welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of the Dual Threat Podcast. I'll be your host, Sam, with JB behind the glass. Nor, we've done more than 2 episodes this year, so Nor's going to have to take a vacation day. He's not going to be with us tonight. I'm flying solo, but I promise not to lead you astray. We're going to jump straight into the action with our matchup review section. Matchup 1, Feralis versus Sam. Man of the match. AJ Green set the tone early in this matchup on Thursday Night Football, catching 5 balls for 69 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, finishing with 24 fantasy points. Green has now scored 4 touchdowns within a 5-day span of this young NFL season, an extremely hot start from the talented wideout. Biggest disappointment. You idiot! Though there were a 28-point deficit heading into Monday Night Football, thanks to some well-timed garbage time points from the New York Giants, all hope was not lost as Danger Russell Wilson was playing on Monday night against the Chicago Bears. But this 28-point goal was quickly put out of reach as the Bears defense was ferocious on Monday night as they harassed Russell Wilson to the tune of 22 of 36 for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns to go along with 1 interception and 2 fumbles, losing 1. Nothing was available on the ground as Wilson only added 3 carries for 17 yards. He finished with 13 points and couldn't provide the explosive clutch performance Mike had to have been hoping for. Overall thoughts. It was a disappointing effort from many of Mike's studs as James Conner, Dalvin Cook, and Keenan Allen only combined for 26 fantasy points. On the other side, explosive performances from AJ Green and Michael Thomas were enough to overcome -2 fantasy points from the Ravens defense. And I pick up the 103-88 victory in Week 2 and move to 2-0 on the season, while Feralis drops to 1-1. Matchup 2, Kevin versus Slater. Man of the match. Home bend was in full effect this Sunday as the 15-year pro looked spry as ever, finishing 39 of 60 for 452 yards, 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and added a rushing touchdown, compiling 37 fantasy points. The game script provided Ben opportunities early and often to chase points at home, which is a deadly combo, and Slater reaped the benefits. Biggest disappointment. Typically, pass-catching running backs are immune from poor game scripts, but this was not the case for David Johnson as the Cardinals could get nothing going on offense as they managed just 137 yards of total offense in their blowout loss to the LA Rams. Johnson himself finished with 13 carries for 48 yards and just 1 catch for 3 yards. Johnson's 4 fantasy points add to his disappointing return in 2018.
Well, it looks like a giant. Johnson. Yes, sir.
Overall thoughts. Slater's 129 points was his highest scoring output since Week 5 of the 2016 season, but the high score was unnecessary as Kevin failed to put up much of a fight as his starting lineup was outscored by his bench 73-70. It appears as if this combination of Diggs and Golladay are providing the dynamic combination while Gronk and Kelce continue to trade number 1 tight end weekly performances. Kevin has to be concerned about the back-to-back poor performances of Aaron Rodgers and David Johnson. He had to have anticipated better production from this tag team during their long absence. Slater's stellar performance guides him and Kevin to a 1-1 record. Matchup 3, Tony versus Gomez. Man of the match. It may not have made a bit of difference in Seattle's Monday Night Football matchup against the Bears, but Will the Thrill Dissly came up huge for Tony in this matchup, finishing with 3 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown, which he scored with just 14 seconds left in the game, securing the 2-point victory over Gomez 67-65. Biggest disappointment. Disappointments were littered on both sides in the lowest scoring matchup of the week, but Gomez has to be disappointed in the injury suffered by Greg Zuerlein as he sustained the rare kicking injury in the Rams matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. Greg the Leg failed to score a single point before exiting the game, and it surely cost Gomez the matchup.
Don't call me Shirley.
Overall thoughts. The lack of top-end talent on both sides was evident in this matchup as Nelson Aguilar was the highest-scoring skill position player on both teams. Consistent production is elusive on both fronts, and outputs such as these could become a frequent issue for both owners. Despite the poor performances, Tony picks up the win in heartbreaking fashion and moves to 1-1 on the season, while Gomez drops to 0-2.
Come on in, boys. The water is fine.
Matchup 4, Corey versus Areola. Man of the match. There were questions entering the season about first-year starter Patrick Mahomes.
What? Is your favorite color blue? Right, okay, go.
I think those questions have been laid to rest as he finished 23 of 28 for 326 yards and 6 touchdowns to go along with 18 yards on the ground. Mahomes' 37 fantasy points was the sledgehammer Corey needed to really pull away in this matchup. Biggest disappointment. Royce Freeman has been piling up the touchdowns this season since his debut in week 1 of the preseason. Unfortunately, the yards did not accompany the score in the Broncos' tilt against the Raiders, as Freeman finished with just 8 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown, totaling just 8 fantasy points. Overall thoughts. There were many solid performances on Mike's end this week, but no spectacular efforts to match Corey's high-flying performers. Mahomes has been a revelation in the first 2 weeks and will surely bring into questions Corey's loyalty to the Patriots on a weekly basis when it comes to starting Tom Brady. Corey picks up the landslide win and moves to 1-1 on the season, while Areola matches at 1-1. Matchup 5, Jason versus Nor. Man of the match. Kirk Cousins was instrumental in the powerhouse tilt on the road against the Green Bay Packers and was no less crucial in Nor's matchup against JB behind the glass, finishing 35 of 48 for 425 yards and 4 passing touchdowns to go along with 1 2-point after toss and an interception totaling 33 fantasy points. It was an impressive performance and shows what Captain Kirk is capable of in a positive game script.
This ship is off course.
Biggest disappointment. There may have been big expectations for Jimmy Garoppolo in his matchup against the poor Lions defense, but his fantasy owners could not have been happy with the product put out in the field in Santa Clara as Jimmy G finished 18 of 26 for 206 yards and 2 touchdowns, a performance that netted just 15 fantasy points. That is 2 poor weeks in a row for Jimmy Handsome, and he remains a risky start, even in the juiciest of matchups.
Damn, Jimmy.
Overall thoughts. Another decent scoring week for JB, but his opponent scores over 120 fantasy points yet again, and it's a tough 0-2 pill to swallow. His starting positions are extremely solid, but the void in quarterback and tight end and flex position is really dragging him down. On the flip side, Nor is off to an impressive 2-0 record, scoring over 120 points in each of his matchups. Todd Gurley appears to be worth the record-setting $82 salary as he's averaging 24 points a game through week 2, and the rest of the team has the right amount of high upside and safe players to sustain this high level of performance. Nor picks up the win over JB behind the glass and remains undefeated at 2-0, scoring a scorching 134 fantasy points a game, while JB is now in a deep 0-2 hole to his podcast comrades.
I'm on the line!
And that concludes our matchup review section for Week 2 of the Gridiron Gala season. Let's move on to our best and worst starts of the week. Best start of the week. Sometimes you have to save yourself from yourself.
Saving myself for Jesus.
And Corey found a way to overcome his love of the Patriots and sit Tom Brady in a tough matchup against the Jags, and instead went with the second-year man Pat Mahomes against the Steelers, and it proved an amazing decision as Mahomes finished 23 of 28 for 326 yards and 6 touchdowns with no turnovers. Mahomes finished with 37 fantasy points and is now the first QB in history to throw 10 touchdowns within the first 2 games of the NFL season. Worst start of the week.
Find a trainer, no good loser like you.
Once again, in Week 2, nothing too obscene in the start-sit decisions to bring up here. There were a lot of blowouts here, so tough to single out a specific decision that made the difference, but it seems like we're getting better at this whole fantasy football thing.
You bum! Hey, Rock, they want you across the street.
Hola, gentlemen. It is I, JB Beyond the Glass. I'm coming to you because Sam is incredibly rude and did not make a intro to the Slater-sation we're about to embark on.
Can't really call spare on that.
So strap in, gentlemen.
Let's go to the phones. Thank you for calling the Dual Threat Podcast Hotline. 106.37 times the square root of your mother's vagina.
All right, as I mentioned earlier in the pod, this was an amazing scoring week from yourself. 129 fantasy points is your highest scoring output since week 5 of 2016, when you erupted for 146 fantasy points behind performances such as Zeke's 28 points, Martellus Bennett's 24 points, and a combined 36 points from Janikowski and the Bills' defense and special teams. What was clicking for you this week to achieve this high watermark?
Wow, Sam, let me applaud you for the stats that you dug up. Pretty impressive. I think, with this week's performance, I think you got to start with Big Ben. I feel like it was a pretty easy decision, to start him over Matt Ryan. You look at that just awful showing that Ben put up last week, and you just had to bounce back a little bit. Coupled with the fact that it's going to just be an absolute shootout against KC. Your boy P. Riv tore up that D last week, and I just had to assume Ben could at least do that. And it just ended up being a dream fantasy scenario. I think they put up 21 points in the first, or KC did, and then one of them being to Kelsey. And then, from then it was just playing catch up, and just slinging it, which is pretty much a fantasy dream when you have that QB. Overall, I was just happy with the matchups, just looking back last week, looking ahead with it. I thought they were just good matchups anyway. Pretty disappointed in, Ajayi getting hurt. I think it was the first 3 quarters. But just looking back at it, I was able to fortunately afford it with Diggs, Kelsey, and Big Ben playing so well.
Okay, so through 2 weeks, you have been utilizing the 2 tight end strategy, which is something that has always fascinated me, but I haven't had the cojones to try to pull it off. So you made a brilliant decision in week 1 to sit Kelsey. How has it been juggling these 2 top tight ends in Kelsey and Gronk?
Well, I'm glad that it's fascinated you. Let me just tell you, it's been a nightmare. I feel like just going forward with this flex, I'm just gonna have this flex dilemma with Kelsey, Cooper, and Galladay. I know people are gonna scoff at that, but just let me explain. I know Cooper sucked week 1, but it looks like he got some of his mojo back against a pretty good Denver secondary. I think Gruden really wants to feature him, keep emphasizing him. And with Galladay, I think the looks have been there. I'm pretty sure it's been double digits, the first 2 weeks. So, the volume's there. And I just think Diggs going forward is just going to be a constant the entire year. So, it's simply not possible. I can't start all three, unless there's, except for the bye weeks or, knock on wood, any injuries. But if I'm fortunate to just at least get into the playoffs, I just feel like I'm going to have some tough decisions. But that being said, it's a nice problem to have. I don't look at Kelsey and Gronk as tight ends. They're more like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1, depending on the matchups. But I can pretty much always have the top tight end each week, and it just creates some flexibility, especially with injuries with Gronk. Just to have that insurance is good to have, so I don't miss out on that tight end spot. So while it's a nice problem, there's going to be some hindsight weeks where I'm just going to kick myself having played one versus the other.
Okay. You mentioned Stephon Diggs, and he's been outstanding through 2 weeks and appears to be rejuvenated with Kirk Cousins under center. Where does he rank rest of season for you among other star NFL wideouts?
Oh, Kevin, I'm so sorry. But anyway, you're correct with Kirk Cousins. He's the kind of the catalyst with him being having a big role this year. He's always been a serviceable guy that you can just spot play for bye weeks or, wide receiver 2. But I think, Kirk's aggressiveness just really kind of elevated his play. Looking back with the trade with Kevin, did I think he'd be top 5? Yeah, I did. I think he's going to be a lock. He's just going to be starting on my team the rest of the year. Not sure if I can really justify taking him out just yet in any scenario, but, so far it's working out. I'm loving where this is going, and hope it continues.
All right, so next week you're up against my podcast comrade, Nor, who is no doubt the hottest team in the league right now. Since he's not here, I'm flying solo this evening. Would you care to share your strategy to take down the beast this week?
Yeah, Sam. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna give you like $500. You're just gonna log into his account. You're gonna move all his bench players to starting 5 minutes right before kickoff, so he doesn't know, and devastating him, and preferably everyone that plays in the morning, so he doesn't know. But other than that, I honestly I don't see myself having any shot. His squad is just like it's just too. I just feel like it's too stacked with boom players. I'm not going to be shocked if one, if not all, have, they're fully capable of having 25-point performances. Can't really call spare on that. I applaud you. It's well done, Nor. Wish you're here. But if you're asking, but if just for a little bit of optimism, I guess, anything can happen. But I'm just not sure. Just too many players to go against, and I'm gonna try the humble approach. I guess that's what I did with Kevin, and mollywop that ass last week. So just gonna keep going with the woe is me attitude and see if it works.
Okay, yeah, definitely setting the stage for a David versus Goliath matchup, and I think we all know what happened there. Okay, Slate, let's play a quick game. You know it, you love it. Let's administer some justice in our first installment of Spare or Fair. Okay, so AJ Green started my week off right, catching 5 of his 9 targets for 69 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. Was this TD rate spare or fair?
Okay, let me just preface this, but I'm going to be the most unbiased I can. I really want to say spare on AJ Green because of that. I just saw that one touchdown. It was just like the guy tried to jump on his back, and it's just like really. But I'll say fair because it's AJ Green, and you can't be too shocked at this production. Players of that caliber are gonna have games like that. No James Conner trash here. But just an aside, how the hell did you get AJ Green with MVP Dalton? Like, I really feel like he slid in the draft just based solely off of Dalton. That's honestly, it's one of the main reasons I wanted no part of him. I've owned Bengal players, and it's just been a train wreck watching that offense. But congrats. But we'll see if that continues, I guess.
Okay, moving on to Aaron Rodgers and David Johnson, arguably both top players at their positions, finished week 2 with a combined 18 fantasy points. Was this scoring output spare or fair?
Oh, absolutely fair. Rodgers, he had no business playing that game. He had it was like a grade 3 MCL sprain. Against one of the top defenses and pass rush. To be honest, I was honestly shocked Kevin even started him. Considering what I just mentioned, I just feel like it was super risky. What if he just threw in the towel in a second when it started to flare up or something? Something after giving it a go. But just keep an eye on it the rest of the year. When he starts playing bad, I just feel like that limp's going to get suddenly a lot thicker. And after some TD passes, it's just going to mysteriously go away when he's jumping all over the fucking place. But, I'm not sure about you, but, maybe I'm out of line here. But can we make a case that David Johnson's the worst running back contract in the league? I mean, as far as, not talent, but as far as commitment-wise and salary, that offense, that Arizona offense is looking putrid, and I feel for DJ, but it looks like it's just going to be a struggle all year. There's going to be games, of course, where he shines, but it looks like he's just going to be ice skating uphill at this point. This actually might be more the norm for him, as opposed to the spare going forward.
Okay, some strong takes there, some strong takes. Moving on, Greg Zuerlein finishing with 0 points because he was injured during the Rams' tilt with the Cardinals in a matchup that Gomez lost by 2 points. Not only that, but coupled with the fact that tight end Will Dissly scores a touchdown with 14 seconds left on the clock on Monday Night Football. I'm not really asking you if these occurrences are spare or fair, but just how spare were they?
Well, let me just say I'm glad you added that caveat at the end. I felt so bad for Gomez because I know what that's like. Tony has the worst team by far in the league, and I feel like just getting a loss to him, it just feels like a double whammy. Will Dissly, it's unreal. Gomez, coming from someone that has contemplated quitting numerous times, just hang in there. Things will get better, bud.
Okay. Moving on, Patrick Mahomes appears to be a runaway MVP candidate through 2 weeks, but was the second-year pro's 6 touchdown, 0 interception performance against the Steelers spare or fair?
This is fair. Look at the weapons the Chiefs have. I mean, who do you defend if you're the coordinator? You can't double everyone. Their own line is giving them time to throw. You combine those two factors, and it's gonna serve as success. Now, 6 TDs is getting on the ridiculous side, but that game was a shootout, and their D's not the greatest, so it's gonna be pretty much required from him.
Got it. When you were watching the 6 TD 0 interception performance, were you getting flashbacks to our Madden days, like?
With me pulling the trigger? Yeah.
Anyway, Kirk Cousins found himself in a shootout against the Green Bay Packers, finishing with 425 yards and 4 touchdowns, compiling 33 fantasy points. Is this output for Captain Kirk spare or fair?
Very fair. Pretty much, the same reasoning as Mahomes. There's tons of weapons at his disposal. And there's going to be games where it's required for Kirky to throw 40 plus times. I really don't think this is going to be out of the norm. I just hope he throws 4 picks next week.
Okay, well, that's all we have for our special guest, our satellite brother from Utah, Alex Slater. Thanks for joining us. Any parting words for your league mates for the Gridiron Gala podcast?
The only thing I say is I miss you guys. I'm sorry I couldn't make that week 1. Trying to get out there in the next month or so, but make sure I do it right. But I really want to watch the games with you guys, preferably when I play Sammy.
Oof.
But miss you guys. I'll see you guys soon.
All right, I'm sure I speak for everyone. We miss you as well. Thanks for joining us on the Dual Threat Podcast.
Ring, 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 banana phone.
And now we'll conclude the podcast with a revision of our Week 2 weekly power rankings. Number 10, Tony Funston, 1-1. Back-to-back terrible performances from Tony, as his total output this season is only outscoring Nor's average points per game by 1 point through 2 weeks. LaShawn McCoy has been a complete disappointment, and now Antonio Brown appears to be a locker room distraction. Things aren't looking good for Tony. There most certainly isn't any bronze in this man's future. Number 9, Alex Gomez, 0-2. A heartbreaking loss in Week 2. Gomez still lacks top-end talent and failed to capitalize on Devonta Freeman's absence as Coleman only scored 10 fantasy points. It appears AP has hit an age where heavy workloads are followed up by dud performances such as these. Number 8, Kevin Wallen, 1-1. After a stellar performance in Week 1, Kevin came back down to earth in Week 2. I think better days are ahead for David Johnson and Aaron Rodgers, but the rest of his team obviously can't support poor performances from them. Number 7, Mike Areola, 1-1. Put up 2 mediocre scores in Week 1 and 2, but his wide receiver score is very good and may need to have a 2 running back, 3 wide receiver approach moving forward until Alex Collins shows he can be trusted. Number 6, Jason Bercese, 0-2. Another week and another high-scoring opponent for Jason, but his above-average scoring efforts are not going unnoticed. He continues to be a dangerous team with the trio of Barkley, Gordon, and Adams. He just needs to figure out his QB and tight end situations. Number 5, Alex Slater, 1-1. It was a great performance from Slate in Week 2, but a lot of that could be attributed to Home Ben's performance. The tight ends and wide receivers are solid, but I'm not sold on these running backs just yet. Number 4, Mike Ferralis, 1-1. It was a tough loss in Week 2, but I am still a believer in the talent in this roster. Losing Greg Olsen hurts, though, as George Kittle performed poorly in a high-scoring game against the Lions. Number 3, Corey Hart, 1-1. Not a believer in a 30-plus point outing for Mahomes every week, but the resurgence of Chris Hogan and the addition of Phillip Lindsay, there are plenty of high-ceiling players on this roster. Number 2, Sam Nix, 2-0. Talent is no doubt, but health is another. Can I survive injuries to Mixon, Freeman, and Baldwin for the next 2 to 3 weeks? And number 1, remaining atop, Nor Sandu, 2-0. No question here, as the champ is scoring a ridiculous 136 points through 2 weeks, outpacing his record-setting 2017 scoring effort. No Fournette? No problem. He is loaded with talent from top to bottom. And there you have it. Another week in the books, another weekly power rankings. Thank you to my co-host, JB Behind the Glass, my absentee co-host, Nor Sandu, and our satellite brother from another mother, Alex Slater, calling in and chiming in and giving us his thoughts. Much appreciated. And thank you to all of you for listening. And here, signing off, is your host, Sam Nix, for another episode of the Dual Threat Podcast.
I'm so lonely, so lonely, so lonely inside real Rome. There's no one, just me only, sitting on my little throne. I work very hard and make up great plans, but nobody listens, no one understands. Seems like no one takes me seriously, and so I'm lonely. A bit of lonely. Poor